All right, you guys. On this week's episode of the SP Mamas podcast, I am talking to the one and only Miss Stacey Dalton. You might know her as the hilarious rapper and lyricist on our social media groups, but today she joins me to talk about her experience with not really enjoying being pregnant and the hilarious stories of the birth of her two sons. You won't want to miss this, and get ready for lots of laughs. Hi, you guys. Welcome back to the SP Mamas podcast. I am your host, Carolina, and today's guest is an SP celebrity. You might know her from her brilliant lyrical skills. My guest is Stacey Dalton. Stacey, I am so glad to have you on the show. Thanks for joining me.
Hi. Thank you. I'm so glad to be doing it.
Yeah. So Stacey is a mom of two, a nurse from Hershey, PA. I already got the inside scoop into how amazing it is there.
Yes.
And you've been a member of Street Parking for coming up on like 2 years now, right?
Coming up on 2 years. Yeah.
That's amazing. How did you
Well, love
find
it.
Street Parking?
Um, I was kind of like following a couple of games athletes and kept running across Miranda's Instagram and just happened to go about it. And like I looked at it and looked at it and looked at it for like months. And I'm like, oh, I wish I could do that, but I can't afford it. And when I saw what it cost, I was like, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
And then that was it.
Yeah.
So,
Amazing. Yeah, it's almost like you can't not afford it. It's crazy.
right.
And still, like behind the scenes here, we're always like, we're trying to add more and do more and create more
Yeah.
and never change the price. Um,
It's fantastic.
yeah, it's amazing. Okay, so Stacey, you've got it's Henry and Eddie, right?
Correct.
Awesome. Okay. I feel like let's just start at the beginning with Henry
Yes.
and just fill me in a little bit about pregnancy and what that was like for you because you mentioned specifically that it was important to get the message across that you don't have to like being pregnant.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit more about that for you, where that
Yeah.
comes from.
So I was a totally miserable pregnant person both times. I started out and I was like, I'm gonna be so cool. I'm gonna be like in a bikini and like basically abs on the side and baby in the middle. Like I was so just excited. And that did not happen. I was just miserable. I gained so much weight. I was sick. So we had two miscarriages prior to getting pregnant with Henry. And so, in order to help kind of like keep the bun in the oven, the doctor that I was seeing put me on progesterone. So, I took progesterone 3 times a day. It made me feel so disgusting
Wow.
all the time. It was just like nausea and you just felt gross. But it worked. It totally worked. Um, but then, as things went on, like after I got out of the first trimester, we stopped that. And then things went on and it just got to be like really uncomfortable. Like he laid so that my hips were just always like womp, womp, womp. It started with like sciatic pain and just back pain. And it was just misery. It was just like absolute misery.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
So the progesterone, you were able to stop taking it in the first trimester, and I guess we can get to Eddie later. But was there something that you were like that made you decide specifically when it was time for Eddie that you were not going to do it, or how did that work for you?
So we saw high risk for one visit when we found out we were pregnant with Eddie. And we talked to them about, what had happened. And they said, I'm confident with I don't know, they checked my thyroid and my liver and my kidneys and yada, yada, yada. And then hormone levels. And they were like, I think you're going to be fine. It's up to you. Talk it over. And so we just kind of Justin and I, my husband and I just had this feeling of peace that I feel like this is going to be okay. Mm. And I really don't want to feel that way again, but I feel like it's going to be okay. And we opted not to do it with Eddie. So, and worked out well.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Did you feel, was there any, going through a miscarriage is devastating at any point. Were those early miscarriages, and how long between those and your pregnancy with Henry, how much time passed and what did you do to get through it?
Yeah. So I had an IUD in and we had that removed. And then they were like, you could get pregnant, right away, or it could take a really long time. Well, I was pregnant like that. And so that was the first one. And that was at I guess 7 or 8 weeks. And the actual miscarriage happened on Christmas Eve, which was it just was sad. And I kind of remember that every Christmas Eve. It just kind of I don't know. It just, that doesn't go away. That doesn't go away. Then the next one, I got pregnant a couple of months later. And then the same thing happened at 6 weeks, which and a lot of doctors say this happens to people and they don't even know.
Yeah.
So, we only knew because a lot of people we were trying. And so we were doing ovulation prediction and, pregnancy tests all the time. So we knew. And then when I got pregnant with Henry, that was a couple of months later. And I didn't believe it for the longest time. That's the biggest thing. And I think it's important for people to know that it's okay. Well, I guess it's okay. Probably not normal, but, I just didn't connect to him when he was in there. Yeah. I didn't like the feeling of him moving around. I just didn't believe it. It was I just didn't buy it.
Yeah.
And it took a while. It took till the third day of him actually being out. Wow. My Zoom is screwing up.
Everything looks okay over here.
Am I still okay?
Yeah.
All right. So it took till 3 days after to really feel I was able to bond with him. And then all of a sudden something just kind of clicked and it felt right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy what your brain will do to protect you. I think,
right. Right.
From all of that over again. And just to go through the entire pregnancy and just be a little bit not totally sure,
Yeah, I just wasn't into it. Yeah. And it was I'll believe it when I see it kind of thing.
Yeah.
And now he's my little, he's my little shadow. He's not little anymore. He's 9. But the joke is always that Henry would climb back in the womb if he could. He loves to be just with me and on me.
Oh, I love that.
So, yeah, that's kind
of. Oh. Okay. So tell me about Henry's birth. What happened? How'd it go down?
So first of all, I was totally miserable, right? I was in super, super pain and there just wasn't a way that I could do my job well. I was up, I was getting stressed out at work. I would start having contractions, but they weren't really anything. And so they took me out of work a month before I delivered him. And they were like, listen, just take it easy. Just do your thing, whatever. And so it was at 38 weeks that our OB was okay, we're going to take him. Come on in. Enough is enough. Come in. we're gonna induce you. And so I got in there and I had already started to dilate, and he was like, and so this was the appointment to like set up the induction, right?
Okay.
And so anyway, so he's like, well, you're already like kind of in labor, like you're, and I was like, no, not today. Nah. And so because my final meal had been Panero's broccoli cheese soup, and I was so terrified, like all you hear about is people that just like poop all over the delivery table. And I was like, no, this cannot happen. And he was like, well, yeah. So like he stripped my membranes, he sent me over to the hospital. And so we like get checked in, right? And so it was my husband and my sister-in-law were there with me. They were like my support like people.
Okay.
And so at that point they're like, do you have a birth plan? And I was like, I say what? I don't know. Get out. So we had taken like rewind. We had taken like Lamaze and parenting classes, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But the only reason we did it was because I could never get out of the house. And so like that was the thing, right? So my husband would come home from work, he would pick me up, it was like on a Monday. And we would go to 7-Eleven. Do you know what that is? It's like a gas station.
Yeah.
So I would get like a massive Coke Slurpee. And then do you know those Twinkies that have the red coconut on them?
Yeah, gross.
So it was that. And so then we just like farted around and laughed and like, like we were like just acting like children at the Lamaze classes, right? So we get in there and they're like, do you have a birth plan? And I was like, I don't know. And so they're like, well, what's your baby's name? And I said, well, Henry. And so she goes to write it on the board and I'm like, no, it's with an IE. And she was like, and I was like, I'm just kidding. She's like, oh my God. So they knew that it was going to be, I guess, kind of a fun thing. I don't know. So
you're like, oh, this is a good one. She's a good one.
Absolutely. We're going to have so much fun.
Yeah.
So they put in epidural. And then they were like, they started the Pitocin, like to keep things going or whatever. My sister-in-law was fantastic. My husband was like over there eating Subway and like,
oh my God.
Like when you have the long piece of lettuce and they're just like, like it's just coming in. I wanted to murder him. Yeah. He was so annoying. So annoying. He was worse with Eddie's birth. But, so anyway, so like, at some point, like things weren't really moving. I was at like maybe 7 and I was just like totally stalled. And they're like, you are tired. You need to rest. We're going to like dose up this epidural, right? We're going to like crank it up and you're going to sleep. So fast forward, I wake up and I'm like trying not to puke and I couldn't move. Like I literally, like I couldn't move my body. There was so much epidural happening.
Oh my God.
And I was like, this is it. I see the light. Like I see it. It's happening. I'm going to die right here because I'm going to throw up and I'm going to aspirate because I can't even roll over. I can't reach the belt. I'm like, Justin. I'm like, Justin. And finally his lazy tail wakes up, right? And he's like, what's up? And I'm like, I'm going to throw up. Help me. So he gets me right. He gets the nurse in the room and she's like, well, like, sweetie, sometimes when you get real sick like that, it means that you've progressed really, really quickly, right? And she's like, we're going to take a look. Like, it's probably fine, but like, and so meanwhile, I can't feel anything that's going down there. Like, if there was like a snake under my, like, on the bed, I could not have moved. Like, I couldn't feel a thing, right? And so she checks me, and of course, then it's like no modesty, right? They take your legs and like flop them out like this. You're just there. So she's like, oh, wow. Okay. We're at a 10. We're at like a, whatever it was, like a +1 or whatever. Like he was there. Yeah. And so like, we're going to get her in the stirrups. We're going to, we're going to do this. Right. So all of a sudden, like all the lights coming out, like, God, yeah. Did you have a hospital birth?
No, but I did the hospital tour and I saw the lights and I was like, this is intense.
It's crazy. And they're like, and here's my husband like this. Like he was just so nervous. Yeah. And they're like, do you want the mirror? And I'm like, hell no. And so we've got my sister-in-law on one side, my husband's on the other side. They like put my legs up in the stirrups. I can feel nothing, nothing at all. And so they're like, push, 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 they're like, push my fingers out. And I'm like, I don't like, I could be, I have no idea what's happening down there. How? So in my face, I'm like, but I don't know if anything's happening or not. And so the doctor that was the OB that was delivering, right? He had just come back to work. Like he'd had like some personal trauma. He lost his wife. And I remember him saying at one point, he was like, you're going to have to push. Like he was not kind. Okay. He was like, you're going to have to push or I'm going to have to cut you. And I go, no. And he took the stool and he reared back like that. And he goes, fine, I'm going to let you tear. And I was like, don't do that. So, right.
Horrifying. Oh my God.
Right. So he like does the episiotomy and then it's like, I mean, I can't feel anything. They're still like, push, push, push. And I'm like, like, I don't know if I'm doing anything or not. And so, then they're like, okay, reach down and touch your baby. And I was like, nah. Right. And they're like, reach down, feel your baby, help guide your baby out. And I was like, I remember I said, I'll touch him later. They were probably like, this woman needs a psych consult. Like, I don't know.
No, I know what you mean.
It was just like, there was a lot going on. And then you're just like reaching down. It's like that game at a Halloween party where you put your hand in the box and guess what's in there. It was like, no, thank you. No thanks. So anyway, so he comes out and it's wonderful. Like, well, he had low Apgars at first because I guess he got like stuck down there. He was down there for a while. So I guess his pictures, he looks real gross at like the first 10 minutes or whatever. And then he just like synced right up and he was good. And then I was there with the baby and I was like, I don't know what to do. When were you able
to start feeling anything? Like how did you?
It took a while. Like it took a while. So almost immediately after I delivered, right? They're like, okay, we're going to get you to the recovery room. And I was like, what? Like, we're going to go on this bed, right? And they come in with a wheelchair. And I was like, say what?
Yeah.
I can't get in the chair. And so they're like, okay, so they bring in this wheelchair that's like this it looked like a birthing stool, but backwards. So you like lean over it and your knees are on it. Oh my God. So then comes the nausea, right? So they're wheeling me down the hall. Here's the baby in the carrier going next to me. Here's my husband with the stupid suitcases looking like a whatever. And I'm going down the hall, just throwing up as I'm walking through the hall. I'm holding like a thing. It was awful. It was so awful. So awful.
Oh my God.
So it was, that was a fun one.
That is crazy. That's amazing. Okay. So I want to know a little bit about, I guess, like the epidural, and that much of the epidural. Was there any lingering effects later? Like, did you?
No, like okay. I was numb for a good while.
Yeah.
And I guess I suppose they say I have like the pocket where they're supposed to put that, right?
Yeah.
It's like hard to navigate. I don't know.
Okay.
So it was like more than an epidural. I don't really understand that. I'm a nurse, but I'm not an L&D nurse. And so like, I just got way too much.
Oh my God. Okay. And then you got the episiotomy. How was your healing and stuff?
That was rough.
Yeah.
And no one tells you about that.
Right.
It is just like, So you know when they do like birth classes on like comedies, how the instructor brings out that like pillow that's the vagina pillow?
Yeah.
That's what it felt like was in my shorts. I just felt just gigantic. And it was like, if there was any chance, like I had my pants off and there was any chance that region would be visible, I was like, nope, nope. I did not want to know.
Yeah.
It was rough.
Yeah.
It was super rough.
How long do you think that it took you to like heal up and start to feel a little bit more normal?
I guess like a week, maybe. I
Oh,
mean, it
okay,
was
that's not that
wild.
bad.
It felt like forever.
I know, yeah, but that's really actually not that bad. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So Henry's born and like he pinks up, you're recovering, but really there wasn't that initial like connection right away, right?
No. I
Yeah.
mean, it was like people talk about like, oh my gosh, they give you this baby, and it's like, how am I qualified to take this thing home? And it was that, but it was like more, it just felt like more than that. Like there was a major disconnect.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I remember, God, I hope he never watches this. But so why would he watch this anyway? Anyway, I just remember feeling like if somebody came in and like kidnapped my baby, like I'd probably be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was the worst. I felt like the worst person ever.
Yeah.
And that's just how I felt. Like I'd be all right.
Yeah.
And the
Wow.
realization of that and like not being, you can't force that bond.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, it's so important to recognize that like we're we're still people, we're still humans, and we still have to work to form relationships, even if it's with someone that came out of us, like so
Yeah.
it takes work um and yeah, it doesn't always happen like in the movies where it was just magic and stars at the beginning.
Mm-mm.
How was it for your husband? How was it for Justin?
I think he was just like scared to death. I just think he was just like super, super scared.
Okay.
Um, and like he was like terrified of like the diaper situation because the circumcision, and then like they make that black poop and then it's like all stuck on their like raw weenie, and you're like dabbing with like a wet, oh, it's awful, awful.
Oh.
I think he was just like everything that came at him, he was just terrified.
Oh man.
But I mean, like they were fine. And Henry and I, like when that moment happened, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was like hormonal. I don't know what it was, but like we just clicked and we were like this. Like I held him all the time. I wore him like in the carrier. He was always with me. And yeah, he's
Yeah.
just my man,
That's
my
awesome.
dude.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so you have this like wild experience with Henry, and then you get pregnant with Eddie.
uh,
Um, and yeah, so tell me about that and how that goes, and did your did Henry's birth impact any decisions that you made going into Eddie's birth?
well, so we knew that I had had an IUD again, right? And so we pulled it and we were like, okay, we're ready to start trying. Like it's been enough time between because they're 4 years apart. And and so like, we're ready. So we had them pull the IUD and they're like, again, you could get pregnant right away. Well, I was pregnant like 30 seconds later. And so again, I was like, is it going to be okay? Is it not going to be okay? Like I said, we saw high risk. They said, don't worry about the progesterone. You don't need to see us. Like it's no big deal. Just go for it. So we were kind of like, I don't know, I felt confident with that pregnancy from the start.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, I was like, all right, this time my head's in the game. Like I'm ready. I'm going to be at the gym. I'm going to be like making gains, but also having like a belly bump. Like people aren't going to say, oh my gosh, I couldn't even tell you were pregnant from behind. No,
No.
I was massive. So I gained 60 pounds with both pregnancies.
Yeah.
Not 60 total, but 60 and 60. So I was just like huge. And after maybe like 4 months in, Eddie did the same exact thing. He just laid on my hips. He laid on that sciatic nerve. He just made me miserable. And for a while, it was like, it's not like a big deal. Like every once in a while, it would bug me. But towards the end, it was ugly again. And so they took me out 3 weeks early, I believe it was, for him, because I was at the point where like, so Justin would drive me to work, drop me off in the front of the hospital. I would work my shift. I would just literally be like sobbing pain and get myself together. Justin would pick me up. We'd go home. I would literally go home, go to bed. Like it was my job to just
Survive.
keep a job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And so they were like, dude, like you are super immobile. Like this is not pretty. You're at risk for a blood clot. Like, we got to do something. So they took him at 38. They scheduled induction for him.
Okay.
And so that time I knew that it was coming. Well, so I'm thinking with Eddie, it's going to be like a piece of cake, right? Because I'm like, I didn't even feel anything with the last one. Like, this was great. Justin says that with Henry, at some point when like his head was coming out, that I go, oh, it burns a little bit. I didn't feel anything. So I was thinking that was what was going to happen with Eddie. Well, no. But so I was home for a couple of weeks before the induction, right? And I literally did nothing but watch Real Housewives of Atlanta.
Ooh.
That was my jam. The day before I knew I was being induced, I ate an entire family-size bag of peanut M&Ms. Like that's just where I was.
Right. Okay.
It was done.
Yeah.
I was totally done.
Yeah.
So anyway, so they see me in the office and they're like, look, we're taking this baby. Call us on blah, blah, blah. Cause you like call the hospital, right? And you're like, hey, my doctor said I'm going to have a baby today. So when can I come in?
Oh
And so they're like, okay, well, unfortunately, we don't have any beds right now. And at this point, I'm like, what? Like, my doctor said I'm having a baby today. Yeah. They're like, there's no room in the inn. They're like, call back later. So I get off the phone. I'm like, this is like, I was so mad. I was like, this kid is coming out today. And so I call back later and they're like, okay, we have a bed. Come on in. Right. So I had started to like dilate a little bit, right? Okay. And so we knew that like things were at least going to move, but they started the Pitocin and they were like, let us know when you want the epidural. And I'm like, okay, I just like, I want to feel it a little bit. Like I want to get an idea of what this is all about. And they're like, well, don't wait too long because then it might be too late, right? And so I'm like, okay, I sign up now, right, for the epidural. So we're in the room. My husband opens up the closet door and he finds that gigantic ball and he sits on it and he just starts bouncing. Like he was just so annoying. He was on the phone. He was answering emails. He was taking work calls. He was so annoying. God. Yeah. So annoying. And for that one, I didn't have anybody else but Justin with me.
Okay.
So like, okay. So they come in, they do the epidural and, they're like, it took a really long time. And so we're at like an academic, like a teaching hospital, right? And so they're like working, right? One of the residents is working on my epidural. It's taking forever. He's like very like discreetly describing what this kid is doing wrong. And finally I was like, I can't do this anymore. I just need you to tell him what he's doing wrong. Yeah. And let's do it. And so the guy takes the reins and he like puts it in or whatever. And they made mention that like, oh, your anatomy is like a little difficult to navigate or whatever. And I'm like, I don't care. So anyway, so I like lay in the bed and nothing's really happening. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I start getting like really, really like fast heartbeat. And I'm like, what's happening? And, so they come in and they like check me and my blood pressure like tanked. Wow. And the epidural was working and I was willing to just take the risk and enjoy the pain control. Not really. but so they had to turn the epidural off and give me like a whole bunch of fluids to like get my blood pressure back up. And then the baby was like, Eddie was like, he was like doing some stuff on the monitor that they didn't love. So like, here's the resident that put in the epidural. He came in the room and they made him sit with me just to like monitor and make sure that everything was like okay. It was so annoying.
I mean,
so annoying.
Oh man, how uncomfortable.
Right. So like when I don't feel good, I just want to be like left alone. I don't want anyone to look at me. Like I don't want,
And definitely not like some, person that you don't know that you already have like this weird thing with that's kind of not messing things up, but like, it's like not 100%.
He was just like in there.
Yeah.
So anyway, so they get it all stabilized and I'm like, but now I can feel the pain again. So let's go ahead and turn it back on. And they were like, no, we'll keep it really, really, really low. And then I start, I'm like, okay, so I have more contractions and they're just like intense. And I'm like, this is for the birds. So I call, I'm like, hi, I'd like to order an increased epidural, please. And so she comes in and she's like talking to me and she's like, we can't really turn the epidural up anymore because it's going to happen again. And like, we just need to like, it needs to stay low. And then all of a sudden I get this urge and I'm like, oh, okay. And I said, I feel like I have to push. And she goes, well, sweetie, we just checked you like not even like 20 minutes ago, you were at like an 8. She's like, there's no way you're ready to push. And I was like, okay, then I'm going to on this bed right now. And she was like, all right, we'll take a look. So then again, they like frog flap you to the side, right? And then like get up in there. And she's like, we're at a 10 and I can see ahead. So she's like, all right, let's get like everybody in here, get like the whole team, legs up in the stirrups, whatever. And so she's like, okay, it's go time. And I looked at her. I think I already told you this. I looked in her eyes and I go, I don't want to have a baby today. And I had like tears coming down. And she was like, honey, you have to do this. But I could feel everything. And I was like, I don't like, it's not supposed to go down this way. I can feel things. And she was like, it's time to do it. Right. So they like put me up in the stirrups and I push for, a little bit or whatever. And all of a sudden it's like getting real. Right. And so all of a sudden I hear them go, we're going to need a juice for dad's stat. We're going to need somebody on dad. We're going to need somebody on dad. And I'm like, what is happening? What is happening? And so I look over, Justin's in the corner like this, hands over his face in the corner, like with the dunce cap. And I'm like, what are you doing? You can't even do this. And I yelled like, you worthless. And so he's like, I just don't know how to watch you be in pain.
Aww.
And so they're like, somebody get him a juice. He sat in the recliner and put his feet up. Unbelievable. So they're like, we're going to need a replacement on the right leg. So anyway, so they're like, okay, it's happening. We need you to push, push, push. I remember looking down at the doctor that was delivering me, and he looked like he was 12 years old. It's our joke that it was like, bring your kid to work day, because he looked so young. And I was like, this is just not happening. So at this point, they were like, well, we might need to cut you, but it's better if you tear because it's like more I don't really understand that. They're like, it's more natural if you tear. I'm like, whatever, just get this child out. Like, this needs to be over.
Yeah.
And so, it's like I'm pushing. And all I remember is they kept coming in with the blue, they're called Chuck's pads. They're like the blue plastic with the absorbent stuff. They kept swooping in. And I was like, I'm pooping everywhere, aren't I? And they were like, don't worry about it, honey. And they just kept on and kept on and kept. I was like, this is the worst. This is the worst.
Oh, God.
So that happened. And then like he came out and he was fantastic. And he just like laid on my chest and we like did our thing. It was
Uh,
awesome. Yeah. So it was yeah. Yeah.
oh, man. Eddie. Okay. Oh,
Right.
that's so good. And Justin's over there recovering with the juice and his feet up.
With his feet up. Unbelievable. You okay there, dear?
I know.
It's a hard day for you?
Yeah. So when you're like you were feeling that urge to push, a lot of women talk about that where it's like it takes over you, where it's not
Oh,
something that you're
yeah.
trying to do, but it happens to you.
Yeah.
Um,
I was totally willing to like wrap my legs in a pretzel and wait for the epidural to start working again.
yeah.
I would have done anything, but it didn't work out that
No,
way.
no.
No,
It's just like
not at all.
must come out.
Yeah.
Oh God, that's so cool. So then you did not have an episiotomy with Eddie. Did you tear?
Yes, I had something called a starfish
Oh,
tear.
Jesus. Oh,
Really,
oh,
Google it, but don't Google it
yikes.
because it's exactly what you think it is.
Okay.
It
Okay.
was a starfish tear.
Yeah. Okay.
So I got all kinds of stitches.
Yeah. Okay. How do you feel like the recovery between the episiotomy and the natural tearing was? The
I felt
difference?
the tear was easier.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like I wasn't as scared. Like I knew like with the first one, the first time you have to go to the bathroom, you're like, better not, better not. Okay, I'm ready. Oh no, I changed my mind. Like, all right, we're just gonna like let it turn into a fossil and be in there forever. I'm fine. I don't ever need to poop again. I'm okay. But like the second one you knew that you weren't gonna like rip open
Right.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
so it was better. It was easier.
Okay.
So
You also mentioned this crazy thing about the shakes that happened after
oh
both of them. What was that about?
So nobody told me about this, but after both of my kids were born, like hours later, I got the shakes. Like the shakes, like your teeth are chattering, like basically you're like shaking the bed.
Wow.
And both times I was like, I have a fever, like I'm septic, that's it. It's over for me. And they're like, it's normal. It's like hormonal slash like the epidurals like wearing off or something.
Yeah.
So then it happened again with Eddie but it's kind of like, it's scary because
Yeah.
you don't know what is going on and you're totally out of control.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive. And then within like 20 minutes, it was gone.
Wow.
That was it.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. So, okay, so tell me a little bit about like, I don't know, were you doing CrossFit at the time or anything like that?
So before Henry was born, I was like, I was going to like the gym. I was going like on the elliptical,
Okay.
right? And then like taking like the Zumba class. After Henry was born, I did like 2 out of 3 of the months of P90X and ended up in physical therapy with plantar fasciitis from all of the plyo.
Jumping, yeah.
But like I got back into shape, right? And felt fine, like whatever that shape was.
Yeah.
And so prior to getting pregnant with Eddie, I was taking like a lot of HIIT classes at our local gym. And I had like, this like gym family and it was fantastic. And then like 3 or 4 months in, I couldn't do it. I couldn't hack it. And so it was hard getting back into it after Eddie was born, but like slowly but surely. But he was quite a bit older before I started street parking.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Okay, so what would you say is like, I don't know, something about being a mom or parenthood that you would want to share with our listeners or the viewers?
Oh my. Um, I always found it so interesting that that people would say things like, "My baby didn't let me get a shower," or like, "My baby didn't even let me brush my teeth today." So I think I was lucky in that I wore both of my kids, and that was great. I got a lot done, got like housework done, and whatever else, took care of myself. But also like I would put them in the little bouncer and they would be mad, but I got my like 5-minute shower and I was okay with that because I needed that like self-care of just not feeling disgusting, especially in the very, very beginning, because you are like, you are disgusting.
It's a mess.
And things are just happening like up top and down below, and it's not good. Yeah. So like and it's not for everybody. Like some people don't want that baby to cry at all, and that is okay. You do your thing. But like it was okay for me to let them cry while I took a shower.
Yeah.
Is that terrible?
No, not at all. I was just talking to someone today about that, about like there's it's almost like respect for yourself. Like you at a certain point, like you have to draw your boundaries wherever makes sense for you. And for some people it's going to be like, oh yeah, whatever. It's going to look a lot of different ways, but you have to draw your line and your boundaries so that you can show yourself some respect, I think. And then in turn, it's going to allow you to show that to the rest of your family, to your partner, to your kids, and also for them to show it to you as well, I think.
Oh, sure.
It's a two-way.
Everyone's entitled to their time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my mom, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, so like my mom taught me something that was super important. I think we were like a month or two in, right, with Henry. And so Justin was on the road like a lot for his job. He was not there more than he was there. When he had first started this job, there was a lot of travel, like all over the US, blah, blah, blah. So there was one night that I just was like at my wit's end. Like I couldn't get Henry calmed down. Like, I don't know if he was getting teeth or what, but like, I couldn't get him to stop. And I called my mom and I was just like hysterical. And, and so I remember saying, Mom, like, I don't know what to do. And I was like, I think I hate my baby. And which again is like the worst thing ever, right? And she said, Stacey, you don't hate your baby. Yeah. First of all, she was like, put him in his crib, walk out of the room, go on the front porch. He's going to cry, but he is okay. Go on the porch and take some deep breaths. And she told me, he is mad. He is not hurt. And that was like, oh, like that was just like a defining moment. He's mad. He's not hurt.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be mad. And I,
it's so
that
confusing.
was huge to me.
I think it's so confusing in those early days because you're like, are you fed enough? Are you slept enough? Are you tired? Are you overtired? Is this just what babies do? I don't know. It's so confusing. And,
right.
And I feel like once you check all of the things and you make sure they've got what they need and the diaper's clean and they ate and they, like, okay, I'm just going to put you right here for a second. I love that to get outside for a second, get some fresh air, take a couple of deep breaths.
Absolutely.
Reset.
Yeah, you have to. Like, you just have to, because it just becomes so overwhelming. And then I think that they can then sense that like tenseness with you, and it just doesn't make anybody any better. Yeah. So that was, that was important to me. Like, I was just super frustrated. And, like with the first one, right? So I'm like writing down every time he eats. And I'm like, okay, 1,400, 4 ounces, burps, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. And with the second one, you're like, he'll let me know. He'll let me know.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but Eddie was like so easygoing. We never knew when he was getting teeth. Like I remember at one of his pediatric visits, right? Cause he never cried. Like he never wanted, he's just like chill, right? All the time, laughing, smiling, just chill. And I was at one of his pediatrician's office visits and they were like, do you have any questions? And I was like, I have a really stupid question. And they're like, there's no question that's stupid. And I was like, is it possible that my son has that disease where they can't feel pain? And he was like, well, no. But like we never, like we would look in his mouth and he had a mouth full of teeth. And we're like, well, when? Like he just never, he's still like that. He's just like wild and just shake it off. Yeah.
Wow.
So with Henry, we knew everything.
Yeah. I feel like Callie's been teething since she was born, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. It's painful.
Yeah. Okay. So what is the role that street parking plays in your life as a parent, a mom, a woman, all of it?
Yeah. I think that it has made me a bit of a better mom because I feel like I don't have to feel guilty about taking time for myself. It's very much like therapeutic, right? You take your 15 minutes, your 30 minutes, whatever, how many ever, if you want to do an accessory, whatever, you take that time, it's you. And it's quick. And like a lot of it is just like grunt, and it feels so great to get all of that out. And then after that, I'm like chill mom and I'm sweaty and I'm reading books and it's just good. Yeah. It's just really good. And like the kids can be out there with me. They have their own set of like weights and kettlebells and slam balls and yada, yada, yada. Like they have all that stuff. And it's just nice to like be together. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's been great. I mean, I don't have to take a whole bunch of time out of my day. It's so much better than like when I was going to the gym, right? Because you have to pack all of their crap up, get them there. Then they cry at the babysitter. You have to get them calmed down, then go do your workout. You get interrupted because they poop. And then it's like this huge ordeal. It's not that anymore. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. And they get to see you doing it, which is this whole other thing that,
And we have the neighborhood kids and everyone comes over and sometimes they'll come over and like watch me work out. I remember one day I was doing kipping pull-ups in the garage and all of a sudden I look out and I see this kid and he goes, Henry, your mom's doing the worm. And it was like,
nice.
Yes, I am. Your mom's doing the worm. Yeah. Thanks.
Not a regular mom. I'm a cool
mom. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to share with the SP moms or just the SP community in general?
I think that like the best thing about street parking is you're not only looking at people who are like totally ripped and like lost all their postpartum weight like right away and like everybody's got like a 6-pack and it's amazing to be able to see people being vulnerable, people whose kids are 10, 15, 20, grown, whatever, who are working out in their shorts and their bra and they've got the stretch marks and they look like you. It's fantastic. Like you don't have to, certainly there are those of this group
For sure.
who look incredible.
Right.
I'm not that. And it's just nice because nobody cares.
No one
but
cares.
and it's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I agree. I feel that a lot where it's just like, hey, I'm okay. I'm just okay over here.
Right.
Doing my thing with my belly and my mom, but it's
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I got the skin for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like a bunch of like, 18-year-old, like, I don't know, like hot bodies.
Yeah. I mean, right. There's that for sure. But yes. I love that, like, you
And
can
congratulations
right.
to you.
Yeah. Enjoy that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's also so nice to know that like it's like my fitness is still valid.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Even if it doesn't look the way that it does for someone else on someone else, that kind of a thing.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this has been awesome. Stacey, thank you so, so much for joining me,
Yeah.
for sharing your stories with me. I feel like I could just keep chatting with you and laughing with you. But this
I
was,
don't think I let you get a breath in.
oh God, it's just, I loved it. I love it
Okay.
so much.
Motor mouth. Total motor
Feels,
mouth.
no, it's so great. Okay, well, thank you. And thank you guys for tuning in again. If you liked this episode, you can like it or subscribe, and I'll see you again in a couple weeks.